All right, so I'm going to walk you through a bit of the story of it. Some of you have probably seen, if you're not real familiar, Advanced Biohealing, and then you're seeing Shire. And so I'm going to walk you through this story a little bit in two parts. I'm going to give you a little bit of history of how we ended up as part of Shire. And then I'm going to try to spend most of the time, because I get a lot of questions from people about, well, where are you guys going now that you've been about 16 months in Shire? What is it like? I get that question a lot. And then where are you guys going to go with this business? The one thing I will point out is the logo. So in July of this year, we were acquired as a wholly owned subsidiary of Shire, so we carried the ABH name for the first year. And then in July of this year, we did officially change our legal name to be Shire Regenerative Medicine. So we are now, officially under that umbrella. And so we are also now part of a public company, so I have to put this up. And as I said, I'm going to kind of walk you through two parts of the story. So first, a little bit about the history for those of you who don't know, kind of when we embarked on this 6 years ago, what it involved, and then where we're going. Snapshot of our division, or what was Advanced Biohealing, is that we have one commercial product called Dermagraph. In 2011, we did about $200 million in revenue. First half of this year, about $50 million. Again, pushing actually closer to 600 employees. This slide's a little dated, but there's north of 500 employees. And in 2011, we were acquired by Shire to form the regenerative medicine division of Shire. And then some of you may also be aware that earlier this year we purchased, for all intents and purposes, Probasis right here in the Boston area, and added them to our company. Again, for those of you who aren't familiar with the history, Dermagraph, if you're new to this space, Dermagraph has quite a story of time involved. It was one of the first cell-based therapies to get FDA approval. So it was approved way back in 2001. Went through 2 sets of commercial leadership and failed both times commercially. We acquired it. I was fortunate to be one of the executives in 2006 who saw the opportunity, purchased the asset from Smith & Nephew, raised $30 million in venture backing, and then in 2011 we sold it for $750 million. So I'll look at George, and that's a pretty good exit, right? 15x. Yeah, you take that?
Yeah, I'll take it.
So it was about a 15x return over 5 years. So it was a great story. And then earlier this year we acquired Probasis. And then also, for those of you who follow this, Thera was an additional investment that was made out of we have a venture arm in Shire called SIG, Shire Investment Group, and they made an investment in Thera, which is a European company. We were part of that Series B. It's a stem cell based company. So to be optimistic, I guess, about the field of regenerative medicine, I'm hoping this gives you some optimism, because when you look at Shire, it's about a $20 billion market cap company. When they purchased us, there was an absolute intent that we were going to be the third division of Shire. And it was very encouraging. It was part of why we did the transaction. Again, for those of you who don't know, we were about 4 hours, literally, from pricing our IPO when we consummated the deal with Shire to create this division. So when you look at Shire, the human genetics therapy, we're hoping to replicate that. That was TKT, bought about 8 years ago. That division now does north of about $1.3 billion in sales. And so we're now, no pressure, but we're being expected to replicate that and create a third division in Shire that generates that kind of revenue. Dermagraph is our commercial product. Again, it's a fibroblast cell-based product used to treat diabetic foot ulcers. As I said, approved in 2001. Our acquisition earlier this year, our first one as part of Shire, was to acquire Probasis, which is a technology actually that came out of MIT right here in Boston, which is an endothelial cell-based technology. And what we're looking at in that will hopefully go into, we haven't made that public, that will go into a phase 2 program early next year is our goal, to get that program going in phase 2. And this is looking at the idea of using endothelial cells to improve AV access. So we're not going to change the way that end-stage renal patients or dialysis patients get a fistula or a graft. This is really looking at, can we improve that healing rate when those procedures are done? And can endothelial cells do that? Improve patency, improve duration of those procedures. And this one, I will tell you, I had the good fortune of being involved in Dermagraph. this one gets me more fired up because if you know anything about that space, you know that AV access is a huge, huge problem for patients in dialysis, and so we're really hoping that this will achieve that. Thera was not involved in this deal, so I know about what you see on the slide, but it was, again, I think another example that Shire as an organization is kind of all in on regen med, on cell-based therapies, very interested in the field and is making investments. So this is kind of where I get a lot of questions. People know our story. They know we've been in Shire now about 16, 17 months. And they're asking, okay, what now? What are you guys doing? Where are you going? And so over the last 4 months, the leadership team, now that we've kind of integrated into Shire and we've got familiar, it's, we still have the same remit. Go build a global regen med business. We're just now doing it under the umbrella of Shire. And so people ask us, well, where are you going? So we sat down for over the last 4 months or so as a leadership team in the regen med business and really sat and thought about a lot of these points up here. So not so much, I would say, a technology-oriented assessment, but really trying to think about in the next 10 to 15 years, where do we think healthcare is going? And you'll see that kind of as I walk through what we're doing. Where is it going? Where's the technology going to go? And what then and how do we want to play in that field? And I'm hoping when I walk you through this, it'll maybe make you scratch your head a little bit of, they're doing what? But I think to give you this context of where we see the global healthcare system going, because as most of you, we're not putting down bets for today. We're putting down bets for 10 to 15 years from now. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is predict what we think the market is going to expect at that time. So here's who we are. This is literally, I think, the first time this has been presented kind of in a public forum. We are a leader in providing regen med solutions. And I'll talk a little bit about this term solutions. So it's not therapies, it's not cell-based therapies, it's not regen med, it's solutions. And it'll make sense when I walk you through why we think that's the way you have to talk. And the other thing that we spent a lot of time when we were developing this is our belief is regen med is a how, not a what. And so a lot of what we are talking about is harnessing the power of regen med. How do we take what people are learning in this field and harness it to make it a commercially viable product that can get to people, that can get to patients who need them? And so for us, it is not so much about that we're going to create, to be very forthright, to create new science. There's lots of people doing that. What our goal is to say, how do we take that great work, harness it, and get it out to patients? And that's what we really want to focus on as an organization. So we talk about what we're going to market, what we're going to commercialize. And it's things like, and we are very true to this, significant unmet medical needs. For us, there's lots of people chasing diseases that we think there are adequate solutions for. And our belief is we've got to go after things where there is a huge unmet medical need. And part of that is a business case. We believe that some of these technologies are going to be expensive. There's no way around it. To produce an autologous product is potentially very expensive. So how then do you chase a disease state where you can demonstrate value to the healthcare system? And our belief is you chase these unmet medical needs. And very patient-oriented. And this other third bullet is very much around how do we support healing or curing. We're not going to be focused on palliative care. There are people who want to do that, and that's great. You need those people in the marketplace, but we believe we want to go after curative or disease or technologies that help with that healing process. And if you go back to this whole definition of regen med, helping the body heal itself, that's really what we want to pursue and what we want to look at. So the final paragraph here is I talk, people have probably seen me talk before in other venues, and I talk a lot about this, is my belief is that over the next 10 to 15 years, if you don't have a technology that either takes costs out of the healthcare system or provides such a killer improvement in patient outcomes, you're dead. And I presented in London and I had a slide that said, go find another technology. Because incremental improvement in patient outcomes is going to get you incremental reimbursement. And when you start looking at the standards of care in areas where there's potentially generics and such, to walk in and say, well, I'm given a 3% improvement in outcome, but I want a 700% increase in price, it's not going to work. You just look at the demographics around the world of what's happening in the healthcare system, and it's a non-starter. You might as well go back and start over again, because it's just not going to get paid for. And so that's where we're very focused. So why do we say solutions? And this is hopefully a way to give you a rationale of why we talk about this. The Shire vision is very focused on providing value to society. And this may sound like a platitude. I will tell you within Shire, this is non-negotiable. As an organization, our belief is in 10 to 15 years, if you cannot demonstrate absolute value to the healthcare systems, you will be dead. And trust me, I used to work in big pharma, so I know what big pharma did 10 years ago. And you look at those companies today that didn't change with the way they approached this, and there was no way that they're going to survive if they don't figure out how to do this. And so as an organization, we have said we have to find technologies and solutions that solve and add value to the healthcare system. And for us, the second part of why solutions is we believe, and it's obvious, but I don't think our industry has done it very well, that solutions go beyond therapeutics. And I was in big pharma. I launched one of the biggest drugs ever launched. Trust me, I know how to create a disease state. Did it for years. But the days of doing that, of creating a technology and sending 5,000 reps out and jamming it down literally the physician and patient's throats, isn't going to happen anymore. It's done. The systems cannot afford it. And so we have to find ways to be more innovative. And so we believe that payers in the future will demand value, and they're going to demand a suite of solutions. It's not going to be, I've got this greatest technology that I want $100,000 for, and then you get it and you say, bye-bye. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to find ways as healthcare companies to address this. And so that's where we believe we want to go in the next 10 to 15 years. So this will, if Chris was here, maybe give him palpitations, but our belief is that Regen Med encompasses more than stem cells and more than cell-based therapies. That if you take this premise of helping the body heal itself, that there will be other means of doing this than just cell-based therapies or drugs. Not that I don't like those. I've made a very handsome career off those type of things. But our belief is that you have to figure out in the next number of years how to do this. Because when you start to look at, if any of you deal in the field, for example, of dialysis right now in the US, and you're looking at bundling in the US healthcare system on dialysis, if you want to understand, in my opinion, where US healthcare is going to be in 10 years, go look at what bundling is doing to dialysis treatment in the US market. It is absolutely fundamentally changing how those companies approach the business model for dialysis and how they're thinking about what they want to become. Case in point is DaVita spending $4.5 billion about 8 months ago to buy a physician network. A dialysis company spent $4.5 billion to buy a physician network. Okay, what's going on? It's a belief that you're going to have to provide value across the spectrum because that's the only way you can get costs out of the system for the most part. So this is where we're going. And this is, I apologize, a confusing slide, but there's no other way to show this. So we sat down and we said, okay, well, where do we want to take Regen Med? And where do we want to build a business? And we really focus now, we're going to focus over the next number of years in 2 therapeutic areas, or I call them franchises. And it's going to be dermal repair, which is kind of obvious because we have Dermagraph and we think we can build on that. But the other area is diabetes complications. And again, I've made kind of a career out of being counterintuitive or contrarian, whatever you want to call it. We basically as an organization have said, diabetes is going to happen. Because if you could make people change their lifestyle and actually lose some weight and exercise, the amount of money that Western governments have thrown at this, it would have happened already. And I live in the South, I live in Tennessee, and I can tell you, if you want to understand where we're going, come on down, I'll take you out to Waffle House on a Friday or Saturday morning, and I'll explain to you why patient behavior modification is not really working. So we've just accepted that diabetes is going to happen. We're going to let other companies chase cures. We just believe that there's enough complications coming off diabetes that there is a need there and there's a business there to pursue diabetes complications. So that's what we're calling our franchise, much less than a therapeutic area, is what we're going to look at is how then do we build a business around treating the complications or curing the complications of diabetes. So these are the areas that we're going to look at, and there's examples in there, but when you really look at it, and again, everybody knows this, and all we're doing is saying we're going to build a business around this. Because if you look at what diabetes creates in our healthcare system, when you look at the cost that is spent in the United States to treat diabetes and the complications, treating the complications is 2x the dollars of treating the diabetes itself. Because diabetes itself, generics, relatively straightforward treatment. It's when someone blows out a diabetic foot ulcer or loses their AV access in dialysis and ends up in the hospital, that's when dollars kick in. And so for us, that's when we think there's a business opportunity. So, we're integrated into Shire. I have a colleague here from Shire. We integrated in. So Pierre joined us a number of months ago. He's been at Shire a number of years, so he's now my biz dev colleague. So we've now integrated into Shire, and so we're feeling good about where we're going. We have the same remit from Shire. It's just now that we're doing it under the umbrella of a large organization, but it's go build a global regen med business. And I will tell you, if you think that's easy, I challenge you to define what a global regen med business is, because they don't really exist right now. And so part of it is we're making it up as we go along, and that's okay. It doesn't bother me. And we've refined this near-term focus. So we know there's other areas we can go in regen med, but for now as an organization, we want to be focused. And so these are the two areas that we're saying we're going to look at, and we're really going to pursue. And we are looking for, and this is why we come to these meetings, is to be the partner of choice in this space. So as people progress through different phases, we are very focused in the regen med division on later stage assets. So as I said, we know there's lots of people doing great science, early stage, that's great. It's not what we do well. And so our belief is that where our strong side of our business is when people get near the end of a phase 2, they're looking for someone to help them run the phase 3, or if they're fortunate to have actually gone through the phase 3, but now they're sitting there trying to figure out how in the world do you put a commercial infrastructure together. That's really where we think our sweet spot is, and that's what we're going to endeavor to do. So, in closing, and this was one of the things when I was involved in trying to figure out if we were going to join Shire or go public, and I will really tell you that this absolutely is the belief of, I would say, every person within Shire, is that they really do see a passion, I guess I say we, let's say this, that people with life-altering conditions, that we can make a difference in that. And so that's now Regen Med has been added to that within Shire, and that's the division that we're going to build and work towards. So that's the Shire story. If you want to talk to us, I'm here. Pierre's there. We have our colleague Lindsay here. So it can happen. For those of you who are in Regen Med and you're scratching your head, it can happen. It will happen. This business and this field is going to grow. So that's my story. I'll be around, and I'm also going to say that lunch is where, Andre? Down the hall. And I want to thank you. I won't be back after lunch. We're changing. I got fired. And so there's going to be a different moderator after lunch. But I appreciate all your attention. And enjoy lunch.